In this video, I'm sharing my 2025 crypto predictions, my exact price targets for both Bitcoin and ETH, exactly when I think we'll see an alt season, when I think the crypto bull market is going to end, and a ton more. And this is actually my third annual prediction video. I've been doing these prediction videos for the last 2 years. And my past predictions have actually had an extremely high accuracy rate. So I've gotten a lot more right with my predictions than I got wrong. And we'll see if I'm able to nail that for a third year in a row. Keep in mind, this is just my personal thoughts. None of this is investment advice, and you should always do your own research. Before diving into this year's predictions, let me recap some of my past predictions and how I ended up scoring. I like to do this because a lot of people do these prediction videos or like prediction posts on Twitter or whatever, but very few of them actually go back and score themselves for how well they did the previous year. Going back to my 2023 predictions video, I nailed literally every single prediction, meaning I did not get a single prediction wrong. Every single prediction ended up coming true, and some of them were absolutely insane at the time. One of my biggest predictions from 2023 was that the market was wrong, everyone was wrong, and that crypto was going higher from here. Back then, Bitcoin was around $16,000 per Bitcoin, and everyone in their news, everything was talking about how Bitcoin's going way lower, it's going sub 10K. Like the endless Twitter posts about Bitcoin's going sub 10K, it's going way lower based on, this chart and this ratio or whatever. It's just like all over the place. And I said, you know what? Everyone's wrong. Bitcoin is not going lower. This was after FTX collapsed, so everyone was like peak fear at this time. I said it's not going lower, and it's actually going to go higher, and that 2023 is actually going to be an amazing year for crypto. Another one that I'm really proud of that's actually insane is that I said we'd see every major Wall Street institution offer crypto products based purely on the fact that they'd want a slice of the fees. And this was way before anyone knew anything about the ETFs, way before like BlackRock had announced that they're doing an ETF, or anyone even thought this was possible. This is like way early, and it was just purely me looking at how much fees crypto is making and saying there's no way Wall Street isn't going to want a slice of this. So I predicted that it was time, like the Wall Street was going to jump into crypto in a meaningful way. They were going to have all these crypto products because they want a slice of those fees. And I didn't at the time understand how right I would end up being, because obviously we've seen this huge institutional wave into the crypto space, unlike anything anyone expected. Like I did not expect it at this scale. And so that was one of those ones where I got like way more right than I even intended, and was just another one that I was really proud of from that video. And there was a ton more. You can go back and watch the video if you want, still live on my channel. Perfect score for 2023. In my 2024 prediction video, I didn't get a perfect score, but I did get over 90% of the predictions right. So I got a couple of them wrong, and I'll highlight the ones I ended up getting wrong in my 2024 prediction video. And some of the bigger ones I ended up getting right. Some of my best predictions were that, one, I said a Republican would win the US presidential election, and that it would be extremely bullish for crypto. And that overall, crypto wins big during the election, and we have a lot of pro-crypto candidates coming into office. And obviously, that one ended up being massively on point. And again, keep in mind, I recorded this video late December 2023, and it came out like early January 2024. Another prediction I made is I said Bitcoin would break its all-time high in 2024. And obviously that it's far exceeded that now. Like that ended up being right. And then we went well beyond that. Keep in mind for this one, Bitcoin was around $40,000 and it hadn't gone above that yet. So it's like it had finally hit $40,000. People were actually thinking it was too expensive and we were going to go a lot lower from there because we'd hit $40,000. The last time it had been at an all-time high was back in 2021. So during the height of the bull market, it hit 69,000, and then it fell all the way down to 16,000, and it had slowly climbed up to 40,000. But again, a lot of people at that time were thinking it was going to correct back down to 30,000, not that it was going to go higher. And it was crazy at the time to say it was going to break all-time highs in 2024, but that's what I was saying it was going to happen. It's going to break all-time highs in 2024. Ended up being spot on. In that video, I made the prediction that the ETH ETF would end up getting approved. Again, super non-consensus at the time. People were saying Bitcoin will, but that's like going to be only ETF for a while. No way ETH gets approved. The SEC is going to label it a security, blah, 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 blah. And I was saying, you know what? No, by the end of the year, we're going to see the ETH ETF approved. That was a prediction I made in the video. That ended up coming true, and it ended up being accurate. I said by January 2025, everyone would again be interested in crypto, that retail was going to finally come back towards the end of 2024, and crypto would be popular again. And we can already see this coming true. If I look at the metrics on the back end of my YouTube, it's the highest it's been since like 2022 when people were excited and back into crypto. I have people texting me, reaching out, talking about crypto again. So retail is jumping back into the crypto space. It's in the early innings of that. but that one ended up being on point as well. And there's a lot more in the video. I did like over 20 different predictions in that video. So I'm not covering them all because this video would just take forever. There's a lot more that I ended up getting right. I talked about how airdrops would be massive in 2024. I ended up making over $150,000 in airdrops. I talked about gaming, talked about a ton of stuff in that video if you want to go back and watch it. But here's some of the things I ended up getting wrong in that 2024 video. First off, maybe the biggest one I ended up getting wrong was I said that ETH would outperform Bitcoin in 2024. And this one was horribly wrong. And in retrospect, was just a really dumb prediction to make. And like me today, looking back, I'm like, why did I make such a stupid prediction? But back then, I thought it was a smart idea. So that one ended up being a wrong prediction, and I will just fully own up to taking the loss on that one. Second up, I said Polygon would gain a lot more attention in 2024. And I guess if I wanted to cheat, I could say that they definitely have gained a lot more attention than they had back then in 2024. That's not exactly what I meant when I said that. What I meant, my intention behind that, was that Polygon would be like probably, I guess, around what Sui is experiencing today. Like it would be maybe not what Solana level attention, but something closer to what Sui is experiencing. And Polygon hasn't reached anywhere close to that. In fact, it's been had a horrible performance throughout 2024. So I'll again take an L on that one. That one ended up being not correct. But I do lean towards this prediction still being accurate. More that like I was early, not wrong on this one. We'll find out in 2025. I'll own up to it if I was like just completely wrong about this in 2025. But I still think AFFLIATE, everything that Polygon's got going on, this will gain traction at some point in 2025. And it'll be more of a case of like, hey, I was off. I was a little bit early on this prediction, but it did end up being correct. We'll see with time if that's the case, but I still stand by this one. I said that Kraken would announce a layer 2, which actually did end up being correct. They did actually just recently announce a layer 2, but I said they would announce it in partnership and along the lines of with Polygon and their AG layer, and that ended up being incorrect. They ended up launching it as part of the OP superchain. My thesis back then was that they wouldn't do that because base is already there. But I was wrong about that. So I ended up getting a couple wrong, but the vast majority of the predictions still ended up being correct and was overall more accurate than it wasn't. Again, there's 20 different predictions or over 20 different predictions in that video. If you want to go back and watch them, let's dive into my 2025 crypto predictions. And spoiler alert, I have some insanely bullish 2025 predictions. Like I am a mega bull for 2025. And if I end up getting even half the amount of predictions I got right in my 2024 video, it is going to be an amazing, amazing year for crypto in 2025. Prediction number 1, Bitcoin will top around 170,000 to 180,000 this cycle, unless we have a parabolic blow off top. Think of like the strategic Bitcoin reserve or something like that, really going into full force, in which case I think we could go all the way up to $250,000 per Bitcoin. And this actually comes from me looking at previous cycle patterns. So if you go back and you look at every cycle before this, you kind of notice this pattern where Bitcoin goes up by half every single cycle. And so that would put Bitcoin at around 170,000 to 180,000 this cycle. But I didn't want to discount the bullishness around Trump, deregulation, strategic Bitcoin reserve, and just the ETFs and all the like unprecedented amount of bullish things and catalysts happening right now. And we have seen in the past like blow off tops in Bitcoin. So that's what led me to, okay, but we could have a blow off top. And I priced it at around $250,000 per Bitcoin. So I know that's kind of a wider range, but it kind of, but I feel like the current setup entails sort of a wider range. I'll say like, I don't think it's going to 500,000. I don't think it's going to a million or some of these crazy things. And I don't think it's stopping at 100,000. I think it's going to either hit between 170 and 180, or if we have a blow off top, if you've seen that, you can go to the 2017 chart if you want to see what that looks like. It's where it just like skyrockets over a short period of time. You could go up to 250,000 and somewhere within that range. And I think this is actually more of a conservative prediction because I've seen a lot of other people's predictions has Bitcoin around 300,000, 400,000, and like some pretty crazy numbers other people are throwing out there. But I think Bitcoin is just such a large asset at this point. It's a multi-trillion-dollar asset. It would just take so much money to move it up to those levels. I just don't see it happening. So maybe this is a more conservative one, but 170, 180, or a $250,000 blow off top. Overall, I'm extremely bullish on Bitcoin going into 2025. Prediction number 2. I believe ETH is going to top out between $13,000 and $20,000 this cycle. Now, this is actually more bullish than what I'm seeing a lot of other people predict on the timeline on Twitter and some of these other predictions coming out. I saw one of the biggest predictions right now is from, is it Van Eck or somebody? I forget who it was. And they're predicting $6,000 for the top for ETH. And I think that is so ridiculous and absurd. I say ETH is going to $13,000 to $20,000 this cycle. And in my 2024 prediction video, the one I got wrong was me saying ETH is going to outperform Bitcoin in 2024. And again, that was a stupid prediction. I just didn't understand certain things that I do understand now. I went back and really looked at the patterns closely because I'm like, what am I getting wrong here? So I looked at them a lot closer and I was like, oh my gosh, I'm completely mistiming this. It should be late December, early January that ETH starts taking over the mantle of the bull market. And it's only after Bitcoin gets so high that people feel priced out of it. And that's exactly why I expect this to happen again. I expect Bitcoin to go so high. You know, imagine Bitcoin sitting at $130,000, $140,000, $150,000 per Bitcoin. Not even that high, like 120, 130. I feel like people are going to be looking at that and saying, wow, Bitcoin's really expensive now. Imagine you're like this big hedge fund or this big institutional person, right? You have all this capital, trillions of dollars capital you're investing. Like, aren't you going to be a little nervous when it's sitting that high to be like, I don't know. I was going to put 5% into Bitcoin, but maybe instead what I'll do is 2.5% into Bitcoin. And I'll do 2.5% into this ETH thing because that hasn't gone up as much. It's a much smaller market cap. So there's a lot more upside potential in case I'm wrong. If they're looking at their Sharpe ratios and they're looking at, like risk management, I see that happening. I see that happening where their ETH looks like a lot more appetizing of a trade when Bitcoin goes higher and higher. And so you're going to see a lot of that institutional capital. They have two options. They have Bitcoin ETF, they have ETH ETF. And you're going to see a lot of that institutional capital roll over into that ETH ETF and push it higher until people feel like they're priced out of that. And we're already seeing this happening where ETH's ETF has had inflow days that have surpassed what we like Bitcoin inflows, which I think is crazy. Like nobody was predicting that. Everyone's been like, even the most bullish ETH ETF people have been like, maybe we'll reach half of what Bitcoin's ETF's reaching as far as inflows. But we've had days where it's surpassed. We've had more inflows into ETH ETF than we have the Bitcoin ETF, which is insane. So I see that playing out where we see ETH go a lot higher than people expect. I think, again, 13,000 to 20,000, that's based off historical ratios, right? The Bitcoin to ETH ratio. And if you look at like cycle tops, where those have landed, it gives a range of 13,000 to 20,000. If we had a blow off top with Bitcoin, then obviously that could go a little bit higher as well. But that's my prediction, 13,000 per ETH to $20,000 per ETH. Prediction number 3 is that we're going to see a major dip in early January. And actually, when I wrote this out is before the current dip that we're going through. So I'm recording this just before Christmas, like a couple days before Christmas. We've had this really massive retracement, pretty major dip. It's actually a decent dip. I think we went all the way down like 17%. Bitcoin dropped like 17%. So it's been a pretty hefty dip. And that's caused me to rethink this one a little bit. Like maybe this is the January dip. Maybe we're actually experiencing it a little bit earlier than normal. Typically the January dip that happens because Bitcoin has this insane price run up before. So in order for the January dip, we'd have to essentially starting on Christmas, run up in price to about January 9th. And then we'd have that dip, but we'd have to go up to like 120,000 per Bitcoin or 30,000. We'd have to go pretty high in Bitcoin to have a decent dip like that. And without that, I don't see it being as substantial of a dip. So this one's, I'm gonna go. I have like mid conviction. It's kind of hard to tell. It's a little bit cloudy as far as how this will play out if what we're experiencing right now is the dip, or if we'll actually see this dip. I would say if by the time you're watching this, because I'm gonna release this early 2025, if by the time you're watching this, we're experiencing a pretty insane run up in the price of Bitcoin, then you can almost certainly bet on like an early January dip. If not, then I think it's more debatable. So I don't know. Count this as like a really soft prediction, depending on kind of how things play out. But in general, it's that the idea is that like Bitcoin has this insane run up, and then we have these big retracements. So if it's not early January, maybe it's February, maybe it's now. But for sure, we'll see it again. We're going to see Bitcoin go way up in price really fast, and then these just insane retracements in 2025. They're going to feel just so brutal. But those end up always being bullish retracements where we actually go higher after. And now, and the reason we do this, the reason it goes higher is because the market has to learn. It's like shock therapy for the market. They have to learn not to sell. This is Bitcoin teaching people not to sell. because every time people sell on those dips and it goes higher, that's painful for people. Like imagine, imagine writing up Bitcoin. Like some people did this. Bitcoin went from $16,000 to like 20 and then like dipped. And people sold on that dip. Imagine you sold on that dip and today we're sitting at almost $100,000 for Bitcoin. Like how painful that experience is. So all those dips, it's like shock therapy, teaching people not to sell. And when people get that in their heads, like through their thick skulls, like you don't sell on the dips. That's actually the point where you actually want to start to learn to sell on the dips, because that's typically when the market kind of comes over its peak. And that's on the whole way down. People are like, buy the dip, but it just keeps going lower because people have been like shock therapy trained to not sell the dips. And that's the market teaching them to sell the dips. The market's a little bit sadistic in that way. So I don't know how you want to quantify that prediction, but again, typically after these crazy dips, we go higher. Like if you experience this dip, we're going to end up way higher after. It's always a buying opportunity in a bull run year. So I don't know. This is a loose prediction. Just kind of peg it however you want it. Prediction number 4 is that we see an alt season kick off in February, and it's absolutely unhinged. I've talked about this in quite a few videos, podcasts, all kinds of stuff. I've talked about like, it depends how you define alt season, right? Some people are saying we're already in alt season. I call that pre-positioning for the real alt season. When I'm talking about alt season, I'm talking about it is just unhinged banana zone kind of stuff. Like alts are going just nuts, crazy. Like everyone and your mom wants to own a slice of some of them alts. Okay. And we haven't experienced that. We've gotten like a little bit of heat around the alts, but nothing insane. Okay. So I'm talking about that kind of season for alts. And I think that starts in February. Not being really risky here, giving out an exact month. It's almost kind of stupid because these things are really like, it's not like it's going to repeat the exact same way every single cycle. So maybe a more realistic thing would be like Q1, we have a crazy alt season kickoff. And in the first quarter of the year, we have a crazy alt season. I'll stand behind that like all day long. So maybe it's February, maybe it's March, maybe it's January, somewhere in that range. We have a really awesome alt season kickoff. That's my prediction. Prediction number 5 is that we see a Bitcoin strategic reserve in 2025. But it's not what people think. And I think I might be alone in this prediction. Everyone else is saying no strategic Bitcoin reserve in 2025. Like they're just complete. A lot of people are saying it's just not going to happen flat out. And a lot of other people are saying it's going to happen, but there's no way it happens in 2025. I'm going to stand out here by myself and say, not only is it going to happen, but it's going to happen in 2025. And it's not going to be exactly what people expect. If you actually go back and listen to Trump's talks, I've listened to all of them during the election. I was like following all this like super close. So I heard him talk and go through exactly how he was going to do a strategic Bitcoin reserve. And it's astounding to me that like everyone isn't just going and listening to this when they're talking about Trump's plan for a strategic reserve. Because everyone else is like talking about Cynthia Lummis's plans for a strategic reserve or RFK's plans for a strategic reserve. But Trump outlined exactly, he said exactly what he was going to do. And it isn't, the government buying a ton of Bitcoin. All he said he was going to do, all he promised was that he would take the Bitcoin that the government currently holds and he would move that into a Bitcoin strategic reserve and hold it. He didn't say he would buy any new Bitcoin. He just said he wouldn't sell the Bitcoin we currently hold. And he would move that into like, into what he would call a Bitcoin strategic reserve. And that's what I think he's going to do in 2025. I think he's just simply take the Bitcoin we already have and move it over on the balance sheet into this Bitcoin strategic reserve. And that's that. We might also get like the Cynthia Lummis bill and, we're actually buying Bitcoin. Maybe that's possible. I don't know. And that would be one that would be crazy to see in 2025. And I agree is more likely and further out if that happens. But I think what Trump's going to do in 2025 is just create a Bitcoin strategic reserve, move the Bitcoin we already have into that. And I think that's kind of all you need for it to be insane bullish. Like, it's not like the government has to be buying Bitcoin for it to be insane bullish. The fact that the US government has a Bitcoin strategic reserve would mean that every other country on the face of the planet has to consider possibly having a Bitcoin strategic reserve because the US government has one. So they got to consider like, should they have one? Just like they have their gold holdings, on their assets, on their balance sheet. They should also consider maybe having some Bitcoin on their balance sheet. States are already considering this, where like Texas and other states are considering Bitcoin strategic reserves. So I think that kicks off a lot of buying a Bitcoin from nation states, like just saying, hey, we're going to buy Bitcoin. And almost this like bidding war for Bitcoin from like the biggest buyers possible on the planet. So I'm extremely bullish about this happening. I think people are like way overthinking this. Like that's extremely, like obviously be way better if the US government was also buying Bitcoin as well. And maybe, again, maybe we see that happen. But I don't think that's what you have to happen for this to be insanely bullish. I think if you just have it on your balance sheet, like boom, Bitcoin strategic reserve, that's what we're going to call the Bitcoin we hold. That's all you need to kick off like this insane Bitcoin buying. So I'm really bullish on that happening. I think we're going to see a Bitcoin strategic reserve in 2025, and that's how it's going to happen. Prediction number 6 is I think we're going to see at least one crypto AI project cross $100 billion in market cap in 2025, or I should say in the 2025 crypto bull run. If there's like a weird possibility, like it's not like my current base case for the 2025 bull run, but I think there is a possibility that 2025 crypto bull run bleeds into 2026. So let's just call it the 2025 crypto bull run. But let's say it's also possible that we see it bleed into like spring of 2026. So maybe it clicks up there. But in my mind, it's like more likely to happen earlier in the bull run, not later. And my thesis behind this is it's really not a secret that AI has been like the single hottest sector for the past couple of years. Even VCs are like FOMOing at the mouth for every AI startup on the planet. Retail has completely missed out on this trade as far as like early trades go. They got Nvidia, they got like Facebook, Google, and kind of these lame trades where it's like, cool, I might make 7% or 6% in a year. But they've been completely cut off from any early stage AI like investments. And crypto is going to be the first opportunity to buy these things small and cheap. And I think they're going to do it in size. I think we're going to see crypto AI vaporware skyrocketing. And we're going to see like some legitimate projects too, but it's going to get crazy, absolutely crazy. And I think we're going to see one or multiple crypto AI projects cross $100 billion in market cap, which feels insane to say today, but I think it's going to happen. I think I don't see how it doesn't happen, especially with the watermarking effect, where as Bitcoin goes higher, ETH tends to go higher, and everything else kind of tends to go higher. So that almost feels like a sure, and to me, it's like seems obvious, almost like a sure thing. But I know to a lot of other people that just seems ridiculous. But that's my prediction. And I have 6 more predictions about what I expect in 2025, including talking about NFTs, when the bull run will end, meme coins, and a ton more. But really quick, the Obsidian Council is my private research community where I share monthly research, my entire portfolio, buy and sell alerts whenever I buy into a project, and more. We've had projects go up 1,100%, 1,200%. 1,500%, and some much more. I spend a lot of money to access a variety of newsletters, private groups, and more so I can get the best alpha in the market. And I share that alpha with the members of the Obsidian Council. Currently, the Obsidian Council is sold out and closed to new members. But if you want to join next time it opens up, make sure to join the waitlist in the description of this video. Prediction number 7. I predict NFTs will make a raging comeback in 2025. But it's going to be later in the bull cycle, so a little bit later towards the end of the bull run. We're already seeing a small NFT revival with Pudgy Penguins, them launching the Pengu token, so it kind of has led to a little mini NFT bull run. But I think we're going to see a much bigger revival a little bit later in the bull cycle. This is due to the fact that NFTs are a luxury item. They're like a Rolex or like a Lambo. Like people buy them when they have a ton of money to blow on stupid things and they want to flex. They do not buy them when they're poor or in the bear market. I really don't think it's like that crazy that they've gone down so much in the bear market. And that makes a lot of sense. Like people don't have money to throw around on pictures of a rock, right? Like there's ETH rocks were going for like $13 million last cycle. Who's going to spend that in a bear market when they feel poor? Like nobody's going to do that. But when people have tons of money, when they're just feeling filthy rich during the bull market, that's when they start buying these stupid things. And so I expect later in the cycle, people are going to start bidding on NFTs again. They're going to skyrocket again. We're going to see a full-on NFT revival because of this. Prediction number 8 is I think we're going to see a massive crypto gaming rotation in 2025. This is a prediction I had in my 2024 video as well, where I said in either 2024 or 2025, we are going to see a massive crypto gaming rotation. Most people, when they think about crypto gaming, are stuck in 2021. They're stuck in like the games that were around then, the way that crypto gaming worked around then, the way you had to like buy an NFT and then like go buy crypto to use these games and stuff. And they have no idea what has happened since then, the games that have been developed and like the abstraction that's taking place for people to be able to play these games on like just normal Xboxes and PS4s without even knowing they're playing a crypto game. Billions in funding was raised back in 2021. There was so much hype around crypto games. A lot of money was raised, and a lot of these games have just taken years to build out their actual products. Typically, a game development cycle is a long cycle. It doesn't happen, overnight. It takes years and years to build a quality, AAA game. And a lot of these games that you saw in 2021 were like the fastest things to market. Like what could people launch in a couple months? So they were really stupid, really gimmicky. And, even despite that, we saw, Ronin hit over $40 billion in fully diluted market cap. Since then, though, a lot of AAA teams have joined the space. They've found that it's insanely easy to fundraise for a crypto game, where it's not as easy. It's a lot more difficult to raise within a traditional environment, which makes sense. Crypto is really great at raising money for just about anything. And where a lot of the focus in the 2021 cycle was kind of like Ponzonomics around these games, a lot of the focus with a lot of these newer games is more around ownable assets, or the idea that like the in-game assets that you're using are something you own and can sell, trade, etc. This does exist in traditional gaming with something like the Steam store, but it's a heavily permission and gated ecosystem that stops a lot of the value accrual and monetary premium from accruing to these assets. As I mentioned during last cycle, we had JPEGs, pictures of rocks, going for $13 million during last cycle, just because they were sold on a permissionless global marketplace. And there was so much money to throw around to bid these things up, and they carry this huge speculative premium. Just imagine you buy Fortnite skins, and right now you buy them, you can't sell them, you can't transfer them, you can't do anything with them. But imagine you could, and imagine like there was a 1 out of 100 early OG Fortnite skin that was like this collector's item. What do you think people would be willing to pay for an asset like that, knowing that it could like accrue value and be like a long-term collectible similar to trading card games like Magic the Gathering or Pokemon and things like that? And on top of all this, even if we didn't have like all these crazy good games, these awesome teams coming to the space, I still think crypto gaming would end up skyrocketing. Like it'd just be inevitable because of a couple different psychological factors that end up playing out every single bull run. And that's basically that when people have a ton of money, similar to what I just talked about with NFTs, people have a ton of money, they're feeling super rich, they end up speculating on things. They end up looking at things and buying them. It's speculating that they could go up in the future. Last cycle, people with way too much money were speculating these insane values on these digital lands and like metaverse items and all this crazy stuff. And this cycle, you can expect people to do the same thing, only it's going to be newer games that are more promising and more exciting and like newer concepts and models. And when these items get bid up, it attracts players to come play the games, especially people in third world countries that have lower wages. When people could play these games and earn an asset that's worth more than they make in a week, at their job, they're going to do it, and it's going to attract a huge player base to be really engaged with the game. And when you have a lot of players playing a game, it drives up all the metrics and makes it look like this game's just absolutely taking off, which invites more people to come speculate on all these items and bid them up even higher, which causes more players to come in and play the game. And it's like this endless loop that pushes up the prices of all these game assets, game tokens, etc. And just like with anything else in crypto, when you have one game that skyrockets to a $10 billion market cap or $50 billion market cap, it's going to invite speculation on what the next game could be. So they see one game hit 50 billion market cap and they look around and they say, okay, what's going to be the next, whatever game that, let's say it's off the grid, token. Or, what's the next off the grid? And so they're going to look around all the other games in the space and, they're going to start bidding those up just off of speculating what could be next. In the same way that people look at ETH and, it's so big and they're like, what's going to be the next ETH? Is it going to be this token or this token, this token? In the exact same way. So that's what causes a crypto gaming rotation. And I think the mechanics of it are inevitable because as long as you have a crypto bull run, you have an alt season and people are feeling rich, eventually you get to a crypto gaming rotation. Prediction number 9 is pretty straightforward. I believe in 2025, we're going to see an all-out manic bull run, super frothy, everything's skyrocketing in price, like what we saw in 2021 and like what we saw in 2017. And I think this ends up playing out in 2 parts. Basically, you have part 1, which is going to be about February to May. You have like an alt season. It's like a little mini bull run. And then you have kind of a break in the summer. And then you have part 2, which is basically late July to August, September, October, November, December. Like that part's actually really difficult to nail down. And if you look at like Ponzi season and what I call crypto fall, that actually kind of takes over somewhere around in October-ish and actually ends up going into March, April, sometimes May of even the following year. So the lines get really blurry and it really depends on the sectors and gets really tight as far as that goes. But there actually will be some sectors that actually carry over into 2026, even as Bitcoin's price is declining. At least historically, that's what we've seen in past bull markets. But the overall point is insane, frothy, manic bull run in 2025, like what we saw in 2021 and 2017. That's my prediction. Prediction number 10 is actually huge, but a lot of you guys are going to discount it. And that's that we solve more or less interop between chains in 2025. Meaning basically, moving between chains in 2025 and using apps in between chains, like I want to use an app on Optimism and then Arbitrum and Base, etc., is going to be more or less solved in 2025, making it pretty seamless to move between chains where you don't really have to think about it that much. And all this tension from like having assets on one chain versus another and having to bridge between chains will more or less be completely gone by the end of 2025. And people will feel like it's not really that big of a deal to move between chains. And basically at first, it's going to be clusters of chains. You're going to have the OP super chain. You're going to have everything connected to the AG layer. You're going to have ZK Sync's elastic chain. So at first it'll be like these clusters of chains, but I think pretty quickly you're going to have all those clusters be connected together. And it's just going to be really easy to move between chains. And a lot of this is going to get abstracted away. And it's going to lead to an overall much different picture for what it's like in the crypto space going forward, where previously we had a lot of this chain tribalism where people were like, these are the apps on Solana. If you're bullish Solana, you're bullish these apps. And that won't really exist in the same way, where these are the apps on Base. And, you always got to have a DEX on every chain. You always got to have an Aave on every chain, all that kind of stuff. That's going to go away. We're going to have a lot more, in my opinion, app chains, where there's going to be like single specialized chains made for a specific purpose, because once it's super easy to move between chains, it doesn't make sense as much to have these completely generalized chains like we have today. So it's going to completely change the landscape of what or how we use crypto today. Prediction number 11 is that Bitcoin and ETH ETF flows will double to triple in 2025. And this is basically due to the fact that ETF flows are typically up only year over year. If you look at the early gold chart, you can see like year over year how it just starts to skyrocket. And it's actually like year 5 or 6, or actually forget off the top of my head, but it doesn't peak for like quite a few years is when the inflows peak. And you have a lot of these legacy institutions are still doing due diligence. There's still a lot of unlocks that have to happen before they start investing in these ETFs. So, even though we've had record-breaking ETF flows in 2025, I think that's going to more than double in 2024. I think that's going to more than double in 2025. And we're going to continue to see these flows accelerate, which is insanely bullish for Bitcoin and ETH. Prediction number 12 is a bonus prediction, and that's that we're going to see a meme coin and Ponzi-infused rally late in 2025 that dwarfs anything we've seen so far. Basically, as the market is having its dying breaths and pretty much everything else has gone up, when there's just tons of money splashing and around and to be thrown around, people are going to start speculating on just the most trashy assets possible within crypto. And that's going to mean you're going to see a lot of Ponzi's and meme coins just absolutely giga skyrocketing to like absurd levels. We'll see how these predictions play out. Again, none of this was investment advice. I can't actually predict the future, but it's going to be really, really fun to dissect how this played out in 2026 in 2025, late 2025 for my 2026 predictions video. So this is going to be a wild one because I was pretty insanely bullish in this video. And again, if even half of these are right, 2025 is going to be an amazing, amazing year for crypto. We'll see how it ends up playing out. As always, if this video is helpful, make sure to hit that like button. If you have any questions or you have anything to add in the comments, let me know. And if you want to see more videos like this, make sure to hit that subscribe button and the little bell next to it to be notified each time I release a new video. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next week.